It's not enough for the Democrats simply to say no to what Trump is doing. We need to have a plan of our own that resonates with the American people, if not fully in 2026, certainly in 2028.
Got a great interview for you. Senator Van Hollen is joining us. Chris Van Hollen from Maryland. I'm going to tell you all about him in a second, but first, welcome, Senator.
Cenk, it's really good to be with you.
Good to be with you. So Senator Van Hollen helped to get Mohammed Ibrahim released. He's the 16-year-old American kid who's in an Israeli prison. He did some great work there. He's questioned some of the war crimes of Israel. And I want to show you a graphic. We've got AIPAC tracker on you, Senator Van Hollen. I'm going to show America the truth here. Here, let's watch. Oh, zero taken from AIPAC in the Israeli lobby. All right, so Senator Van Hollen, I've referred to you once or twice as potentially the new Bernie in terms of being honest. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I would embrace that. I mean, first of all, I love Bernie, good friend, and I do like the fact that he always speaks his mind. And I will say I'm guilty of speaking my mind, and people can decide whether they like what I say or don't like what I say, but they can be sure that I will not try to sugarcoat things or shade them.
Well, that's certainly the case for us as well. So I'm going to ask you some tough questions about the Democratic Party overall. But first, before we get there, so many of your colleagues, in my opinion, both Republican and Democrat, are blind on the issue of Israel. But yet you were shockingly early to call out some of their abuses. I remember reading them twice, 3 times. Really? The senator from Maryland called out the abuses for Israel. So was it something about your past, your experience, something that got you to open your eyes a little bit better than the rest of your colleagues?
Well, Cenk, I grew up in a foreign service family, which means that I grew up in different parts of the world: India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Turkey, and I was proud to be part of a family that represented the United States, because for all our faults, we said we stood for freedom and democracy and the rule of law. And I actually take that seriously despite all our faults, and they are many. And so my view is that if we're going to have a foreign policy that is based on our values, you can't cherry pick your values, and you need to apply those rules and standards and human rights to both your partners as well as your foes, to friend and foe and adversary and ally alike. Because if you don't, you lose all your credibility, and that actually hurts American interests overseas when people see that we're just using human rights selectively to go after our adversaries and not holding others to those standards. And so it was very clear from very early on that while Israel had the right to defend itself after the Hamas attacks, that their response was not limited to going after Hamas, that they imposed collective punishment on the Palestinian people in Gaza. And it got worse every day in terms of cutting off humanitarian assistance, indiscriminate bombing. And of course, we're also witnessing the West Bank, which is literally on fire as Palestinians are pushed off their land and violent settlers are allowed to commit crimes with impunity. And so my view is, the United States has a set of standards. We need to apply them, and I feel strongly about that.
Yep. So now let's talk about the state of the Democratic Party, because let's start with this issue, but it's not just about this issue at all. 92% of Democrats in a poll a long time ago, so the number's probably even higher now, said that they disapproved of Israel's actions in Gaza. 2/3 Democrats, again, now nearly 6 months ago, probably way higher now, say that Israel should not get any more funding from America. Yet the overwhelming majority of Democrats in Congress go, no, we don't care what 92% of our voters want. We don't care at all. We're just going to represent Israel, and we're going to keep giving them money. So help me understand how that makes sense, because I can't, other than corruption, I can't make sense of it.
Well, Cenk, we the United States should not be a rubber stamp for any other country or foreign government, regardless of what that government is. And when it comes to the conduct of the Netanyahu government, we should not be providing them a blank check. So, for example, the House and the Senate just passed this bill. It was a collection of bills, and I objected to them for a number of reasons. They didn't rein in the ICE operations. They did not put guardrails and rein in the use of the National Guard in our cities, using cities as a training ground. They also cut dramatically humanitarian assistance around the world and provided essentially a blank check to the Netanyahu government in the case of Israel, even as we witness everything that continues to happen in Gaza, even as the IDF just admitted that at least 70,000 Palestinians had been killed, when everybody here here in the United States, or many that were sort of protecting the Netanyahu government, said that was just propaganda, pro-Hamas propaganda. So in any event, the reason are many, but one of them is AIPAC. I mean, you mentioned the AIPAC tracker. AIPAC takes this position that the United States should provide unconditional aid to the government of Israel. We don't provide unconditional aid to virtually any other country in the world. And my view is the Netanyahu government should be treated no differently, especially as you and we all witness their actions, again, both in the West Bank as well as in Gaza. So AIPAC has had an oversized role to play. Democrats, rightly criticize the influence of big oil or big pharma. There's also big AIPAC, and I will say big AIPAC is, already run ads against me for speaking out. They objected when I offered an amendment almost 2 years ago now that said every country in the world, it didn't identify any particular country, every country in the world that receives US military assistance should have to commit in writing that they will abide by international law and abide by American law. AIPAC opposed that. So you get the idea. They want just an open tap of American taxpayer dollars. And that should not be something that the United States just provides unconditional aid to any country in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I often give my opinions during the interviews. I think AIPAC is evil. I think that people who take money from it should be ashamed, and they don't really represent this country. And I think that giving money to a country committing genocide, still to this day, they just killed 32 Palestinians today, is unconscionable. And we shouldn't give them a single dime, not $1. But that's my opinion. I want to ask you a quick factual question before we move on to other things. So in that bill that the 7 Democrats voted for in the House that's now being held up in the Senate because of the ICE funding, how much money is in there for Israel?
So the bill that passed out of the Senate has the $3.3 billion in funding for to the government of Israel.
I got you. And then, I don't know if you even know this because I've literally not found one person who knows, but you are in the Senate. So press keeps reporting that Donald Trump is giving more and more money to Israel, that $8 billion about a month ago, and then another $4 billion. And then today we found out another $6.5 billion. Has Congress voted on any of these appropriations, or is the president just giving away the money without congressional authorization?
So you're right. So in this case, in these cases, the Trump administration has done an end run in many instances around Congress. The most recent, proposal is to provide $6 billion of various weapon systems, including Apache helicopters. They're supposed to file this notice of arms sale to Israel with the Congress. By law, they should be doing that anytime, which starts a clock ticking, where we will obviously have a chance to review and act on those. These are the same mechanisms, Cenk, that Senator Sanders and I and others used during the Biden administration to at least get votes on some of the arms sales, the weapon transfers to the Netanyahu government. throughout the last couple of years, including, one that was being proposed to be sent right in the middle of the total cutoff in humanitarian assistance by the Netanyahu government, resulting in, starvation in Gaza. So there are mechanisms that Congress can and should use. We've used them. Unfortunately, we haven't had enough votes to actually succeed in blocking them.
But it's not even about blocking them. I just want to, I would love to block them, but I want to vote. So I literally don't understand it, because it's not arms sales. We're giving it to them. They call it arms sales, but then we pay for it. So has Congress voted for that $6.5 billion? Or will it ever vote for that $6.5 billion? Or can the executive branch just give away $6.5 billion and tell you to pound sand?
So there are two different things. What they're doing is, and there's some confusion here, because the $3 billion that was just in the package of appropriation bills, which I oppose that package, and in my statement, I mentioned the problem with giving another blank check of $3 billion. These are funds that go right into the bank account of the government of Israel, right into the Netanyahu government's bank account. They then use those funds, as you say, these are American taxpayer dollars, and say, I'm going to use these funds to purchase the weapon system. So when you're asking about the $6 billion for Apache helicopters and other weapon systems, that's money that the Netanyahu government is doing that they've already banked based on that accumulation of funds that have been appropriated in these bills over the years. So the first line of defense is don't provide the blank check that goes into the bank account of the government of Israel. Then there are opportunities later on to vote on individual arms sales, but those are much harder to block, because even if you succeeded in blocking them in Congress, the president can veto it. But my view is what you're saying is all of these require greater scrutiny, greater debate, and that is why that's why Senator Sanders and I and others did raise these, and we got votes on them on a number of occasions. Unfortunately, not nearly enough votes. We got more votes as time went on, but not nearly enough to pass. Our high water mark was just over half of the Democratic caucus in the United States Senate.
Yeah, so don't take this the wrong way, but I don't believe that these have been banked. 8, 4, and 6.5 all in like the last 6 weeks. So that's $18.5 billion. That wasn't banked. There's no way that was banked. I don't think they're getting any authorization. But okay, we'll try to sort that out. We'll see what happens. They banked $18.5 billion and they didn't use it yet. There's no way that's the case.
No, they've got, believe me, over time they've got accumulated quite a bit. Okay. Anyway, I'll look into it too. But
yeah.
The point is that this is not. No, this is money. This is money that's already been authorized and money that's been previously appropriated. So those monies are monies that have been banked. But again, what I'm talking about is there are opportunities still with every individual arms transfer over a certain size, and these are over that size. There's an opportunity for Congress to try to block them, which is what we did try to do on a number of occasions. We need more people weighing in and paying attention, because AIPAC pays very close attention to those votes, and we need everybody else who doesn't think that US tax dollars should be this constant stream of blank checks to be weighing in.
Okay, so let's go to the state of the Democratic Party. So looking at it from the outside, it looks like it's in disrepair and the polling is in the 20s. Donald Trump is now quite unpopular. And so the Democrats have this great opportunity to represent the American people, present a different alternative. And it feels like from the outside that they're doing absolutely none of that. So, but that's why I wanted to talk to you, and I'd love to talk to the others. Is there a secret plan we're not aware of? Like, what is the Democrats' plan for winning the next set of elections other than do nothing?
Well, you're absolutely right to point out the fact there's sort of no sort of unified plan of action at this particular moment in time. I will say that as we head into this midterm election, as you point out, people around the country are understandably, appalled at the actions of the Trump administration, and it goes beyond, stripping people of their constitutional rights, locking up journalists, shooting two Americans in the street of Minneapolis and lying about it. It also goes to the fact that, Trump said he was going to focus on bringing down prices on day one and has done everything else, including having promised no wars, being engaged in, going after Venezuela, putting military forces at risk in order to, grab Venezuelan oil. Also what we're witnessing in Iran. So in a midterm election, there will be a lot of focus on that. But I have said, I think this may be what you're getting at, that it's not enough for the Democrats simply to say no to what Trump is doing. We need to have a plan of our own that resonates with the American people, if not fully in 2026, certainly in 2028. And we have to be very clear that the status quo is absolutely unacceptable. I think Democrats have become way too intertwined with all sorts of big money special interests, across the board. We need to break out of that. This is why, I've proposed a bill called, Power for the People, so that ratepayers aren't funding the costs of all these data centers for the richest, companies on the planet. About to call for a surtax on millionaires and use some of those funds to provide tax relief to working people, and Medicare for all, which I know is something you've supported. So there are a lot of ways where Democrats need to directly appeal to the American people and say that, we are on your side and not just BSing you about it.
So I want to ask you about the data center bill, because that's really interesting. If that bill doesn't pass, right now is the current state of law that if they set up a data center in your neck of the woods and they use up a tremendous amount of energy, electricity, et cetera, that somehow, the cost of that somehow gets spread to the average citizen?
Yes, the short answer is yes, that's what's happening. I'm in the state of Maryland. PJM is the grid in this region. It actually covers, more Americans than any other grid in the country. And already in just the last few years, ratepayers in this region have had to pick up the tab in the amount of about $27 billion for data centers that are projected to come online, and also for some of the transmission costs that are associated directly with data centers. This is ridiculous. I mean, people's prices are going up across the board, and the richest companies on the planet, these are the big AI companies, as you know, and others that are using these data centers. There's no way that, my constituents, your people in your area should have to pick up the tab for those big corporations and the billionaires. So that's what the bill would do. That's why we call it power to the people. If you want to hook up to the grid as a data center, bring your own power and pay the other associated costs with it. Don't, effectively what they're doing is socializing their costs, but privatizing their profits.
Insanity. I mean, what is that? It's just dumping their costs onto us. They do this all the time. The big oil companies, hey, here, subsidize me, and I'll dump my climate change costs on you. And now you pay for the severe storms, et cetera, that I caused. It's madness. I mean, why should I pay for their electric bill? What, do we have capitalism or don't we have capitalism? Why don't you pay your own goddamn costs?
Which is why, well, exactly, right? I mean, if that's the way, if you're a capitalist, you believe that they should have to cover those costs. So look, we're trying to get the Trump administration or Republicans on board. We'll keep fighting. They say they care about price hikes and all these costs that the Americans are being smothered by. So maybe this will be an area where we can find some common ground. Obviously, there's some special interests that like the status quo.
Of course. Okay, so Senator Van Hollen, in the caucus, so like the data center idea is a good idea. We think we have a populist plank. There's plenty of good ideas in there. Paid family leave, 84% of Americans want it. Banning private equity from buying residential homes, allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. These are all super popular, 70, 80, 90% in popularity. Are these ever discussed in the Democratic caucuses? Does Schumer or anyone else give you guys, and take your input too? Like, hey guys, let's discuss if we win the Senate in 26. My God, if we have total power and we won the White House in 28, what are we going to pass? What's our priorities? Do you guys have those discussions?
Sure. Yes. I mean, the short answer is that if you look at the last time that Democrats were in the majority, and Biden was in the White House, we passed, for example, the law, at least with respect to Medicare, to finally give the Medicare system the power to negotiate drug prices. We didn't do it as much as I would have liked to see. It was still too narrow, and that's because we didn't have enough votes within our caucus to get it done. The child care issue, there are many, many proposals, Cenk, to do that. But at this particular moment, my view is that we need to be doing more of that, and especially as we get into 2027 and 2028. But the reason I'm putting these proposals out there, and I'm about to introduce the millionaire surtax, is because I believe that it's not enough to focus on all the terrible things the Trump administration is doing. And in my view, they are really horrible, shredding the Constitution, again, locking up journalists. But we also need a lot more than that if we're going to take our case to the American people in 2028. And so I, at least speaking for myself, I'm very focused on trying to make sure that we have something real, right? Not BS, not something that's just more rhetoric. A lot of people say, sometimes the messaging is bad, and the messaging may be terrible, but you've got to be able to have something that you're messaging about that's real, because the American people are smart, and they can smell a fraudulent proposal when they see one.
Yeah, we hope. So we've got limited time, so I'm going to ask you the last couple of questions as quickly as I can. So on ICE, do you think that they're in retreat? Do you think we've gotten past the worst of it? And what else can we do to block what we're seeing, the madness in the streets?
Well, Cenk, I'm not sure they're in retreat. I think they're saying things that they want people. Let's put it this way. Trump knows that what happened in Minneapolis is unacceptable to the overwhelming majority of Americans, regardless of party, right? Shooting two people and killing them and then lying about it, right? Then calling them domestic terrorists when everybody in the country can watch the videotape and see that they were lying through their teeth. And so they are beating a little bit of tactical retreat when it comes to rhetoric, but in Minneapolis, things are still bad. And I will tell you, in many ways, we've not seen the worst of it unless we keep trying to rein them in. In my state of Maryland, they just announced a new detention center in Western Maryland that can take up to 1,500 people. Howard County, Maryland, today, we worked with them, the local government passed an ordinance blocking another ICE facility. My point is, Steve Miller and Kristi Noem and Donald Trump, they are building more and more detention centers, and they want to fill all those detention centers. They're not going after the worst of the worst. We know that. They're going after in a mass deportation effort. So this is why we will keep fighting back. It's why I voted against giving another dime to ICE, even for another 2 weeks. We will work to see if we can get some meaningful restraints and rein in ICE. I don't know, Cenk, if Republicans will agree to the minimum necessary to rein them in. We will see.
Yep. So by the way, some of those are private prisons that are the donors of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. And so they're going to get rich off of that as well. All right, last substantive question is Iran. So my sense is that Trump will likely attack Iran again on behalf of Israel. And this time around, I'm worried that there might be casualties on our side because That's just the nature of war. If you take enough risks, things go wrong. And if there are, my guess is that the media and all the politicians, or almost all of them in Congress, will say, that's it, we've got to go into a bigger war with Iran. So if that happens, how in the world would we prevent it?
Well, we need to prevent it by reminding people and getting people across party lines to remind everybody that this is somebody who ran on a platform of no wars. Now, unfortunately, when we've had these votes on war powers resolution with respect to Venezuela, we only had 2 Republicans join every Democrat. So we didn't have enough to get it over the finish line. But there already, as we speak, a war powers resolution has been introduced with respect to military action against Iran, one that I strongly support. We will see if Republicans will join us in voting for that, because this is the issue when you have a lawless president and a feckless Congress. Essentially, Donald Trump, he wants to be the dictator. He's an authoritarian leader. He doesn't care about the Constitution. So we need to rein him in. You can use the power of the purse, but in that case, you also need Republicans, Cenk. So look, at the end of the day, this is why, I've said we need to fight them in the Congress and the courts, but also in communities. The biggest heroes for me are the folks in Minneapolis who are blowing whistles and on ICE and helping their neighbors. I remember, back in March, this March it'll be, a year when the Trump administration snatched Kilmar Abrego Garcia off the streets of my state of Maryland and flew him to the gulag in El Salvador and said he would never come back to the United States, not ever. And that's when I went down there, despite a lot of members of my own party saying, don't do that, don't do that. But that plus a 9-0 Supreme Court decision, he is now back here with his family. They are still continuing to politically prosecute him. So this is far from over, but it is an example how each of us has to, this is why I talk about the people in Minneapolis, watching them stand up individually and collectively, getting in good trouble, getting in the way. There's no cavalry coming, right? We are the cavalry, you and me and everybody else. We're the cavalry, and it is we the people. And I will fight every day in the United States Senate and have been. At the end of the day, it will require all of us, collectively to fight to save our country and our democracy and our Constitution. And I want to applaud all the folks in the federal government who do stand up, who refuse to obey illegal orders, the folks in the Justice Department who refuse to go to law and lie to the judges and instead get fired or quit. And I also equally say to all the law firms and all of the universities who are placating the bully, shame on you. Because when they do that, when they appease the bully only gets hungrier, his appetite gets bigger. And so it all began early on with cases like Abrego Garcia, or when they locked up students on college campuses who were protesting against the war in Gaza. Those were the early signs. And to you and me and others, it was pretty clear right from the start that we faced a clear and present danger to our democracy. And that continues to this moment. And so all of us need to fight back hard and together, like the people in Minneapolis.
100%. And finally, the question I ask everybody that comes on the show is, it's about a peaceful, political, nonviolent revolution, right? The show is. And we feel like we need one. If you could have one fix that would help get our government back for the people, what would be that one fix?
My fix would be to get rid of the corruption at the heart of politics, which is, repeal Citizens United, demand transparency, get the big corporate money out of politics.
Couldn't agree more. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, actually fighting for you, which is rare in Congress. So thank you for joining us. We really, really appreciate it.
And good to be with you.